recently stepped into a broader leadership role, and I'm struggling with managing competing demands from multiple stakeholders: senior leadership, board members, customers, and internal teams. Everyone has different priorities and agendas, and I'm finding it challenging to navigate the politics while staying focused on what's truly right for our customers and business. How do you manage all of these competing stakeholder interests and maintain clarity on what really matters?
This is the big leagues, right? This is the moment of truth of stepping into a bigger role. So I would just remind you that what got you here won't get you there. It is a new job. And it feels to me like there's some key things that you are not letting go of your old job in trying to do your new job. So I would first start there. A couple big ideas here. Number one, when you step into a new role, you need more hiding and thinking time to make sure you're strategically aligned with what is most important. Blocking time on your calendar, probably in the early days, every week. And for sure, as you go on, no matter how long you've been in seat, you still need to be doing this once a month to make sure to look at your calendar, look at the things that you're doing and ask yourself with all integrity, am I working on the most important things? And am I focused on the right things? You got to get your strategic head straight, or else you're never going to survive, because you're never going to be able to do everything. So you have to be intentional about what you do, because if you don't do that, you're going to be neglecting the things that are the most important. So that's the first thing. The second thing, you're not delegating enough. If you're completely consumed with all of the different things, it is because you're trying to do it all from your own seat. So you need to ask yourself, which of these things are important but need to be done by someone else versus which of these things are important but need to be done by me? You have to remember that as you get to these bigger seats, it's definitionally unsolvable. It's definitionally impossible to keep everybody happy, and it's definitionally impossible to get it all done. So you have to make intentional decisions on which problems you're going to be aware of, but not working on. Even after the delegation, even after the prioritization, there's still going to be an important list of things that are very important that you're just not going to work on. And you have to get to terms with that in your own soul to make sure that you're not missing the most important things. So it really is an impossible job. I totally sympathize with you. I'm not being hard to be hard, but the point of the bigger roles is that your job is to decide which things you let languish and which things you work on. That's your job. And so figuring out how to feel good about those decisions is going to help you a lot.
All right, I'm going to get a little dystopian here for a second. So when you become a manager and you're a frontline manager and you have a team, again, we talked about this, and it is a totally different job and so on. But for the most part, you're really not playing politics. And for the most part, you're going to be able to figure out how you and your team can get pretty much everything done. Maybe not everything, but pretty much, right? And you're generally going to be supported, right? There's not going to be a lot of like internal competition for your job. Generally speaking, everyone around you is going to support you, assuming you're doing a relatively good job, right? As Meg said, when you get up to that next level, you become a manager of managers. You become, maybe a junior executive. You become, a bigger deal. All of that completely changes. Suddenly you have like everyone's out to get you. Not everyone, but like kind of, so
So true.
it's tough. It's tough out there. And That combined with what Meg was saying, which is that you can't possibly do all the things and you can't please everyone. So it's like a double bind, right? So you're suddenly in a position where you're accomplishing a lot less compared to what, is seemingly expected of you. And then you have a lot of vultures circling you, right? So it's kind of scary. So again, that's why you really need to get back and make sure that you have a good idea of what it is that matters the most, what your team really, that vision that your team needs to beat to, what things are the most important and aren't important. But on top of that, you also need to have a good idea of, like, when you aren't going to do something, like who are you going to displease, and what is the fallout of that? It's important to recognize that and either be okay with it or to have some sort of mitigation in order to make sure that those consequences don't, completely come back to bite you, right? And so this is like, when people talk about, should I go into leadership? Do I want that for my career? This is why it's tricky, right? It's fantastic to have power and control and influence and all of that kind of stuff. But it's really hard. It's really, really stressful. And so if you really are just doing it for prestige, if you are just doing it for that power and influence and control, then it's a world of hurt. So you kind of have to have this like whole separate heart, which is like why you're doing it. You're doing it because you care about the business, because you care about the people, because you want to, be a good role model. All of these things are really important. And at the same time, you have to protect your heart, which is to understand that you can't care too much, right? You have to care a lot, but at the same time, you have to be able to let things go. You have to be able to recognize that that the politics is going to get really ugly potentially, and you got to just let it go.